A lot of composers think that you need to have a really great ear to compose music, and you do need to have a good ear, but you need to have a good ear in a very specific way. With performers, we need to be able to identify intervals, chords, chord progressions. We need to be able to do dictations in real time. These are all important skills that could really aid a performer's ability to understand what's going on in an ensemble and to transcribe music and to really just participate actively rather than just playing the notes in a musical work. For a composer, it's a little bit different. You don't actually need to have a great ear. You don't actually need to be able to identify intervals and chords quickly. You should be able to identify them, but it doesn't have to be, bam, I just know what that interval is. Of course, that's ideal. If you can identify intervals and chords quickly, then you've just saved yourself a lot of time. If you can take apart a complex harmony really quickly, then yeah, you've saved yourself a lot of time. But what a composer really needs is the ability to audiate their music. So it's a different type of ear training. Audiation is something that is not taught very often, and it's something that can really help you as a composer to write a really successful piece. So with audiation, what you do is you are able to actually hear everything internally. And then it doesn't matter. If you can hear it internally, it doesn't matter how long it takes you to notate it. Because you've got that music clearly in your head, you can take your time, you can go to a piano, and you can pick apart everything that's going on. You can write generally a rhythmic sketch of the piece, and then you can start to apply the actual pitches to those rhythms. So maybe you write quarter to eighth chord note rhythm that you hear in your head, but you don't know what the pitches are. You can go to the piano and you can kind of use that hunt and peck technique to try and figure out what notes you're actually hearing. And once you get them, then you just line them up with your rhythm and you've started to write your composition. So while ear training is very useful, because if you had a good ear from a performer standpoint and a good ear from a composer standpoint where you're audiating, then you're able to write much more quickly. But the important thing to remember here is that it's much more important for a composer to be able to just hear things internally. And that's the skill that should be focused on primarily if you are truly just a composer who doesn't perform, who just writes music for other people. Because once you can unlock this ability to create music in your own mind, then you're really unlimited in what you can create. You can create much more flexibly, much more truly, and much more efficiently. So keep that in mind as you're going about ear training. The Flawless course that I teach on here, it does have quite a bit of audiation in it, but there are some additional exercises that you'd want to do. You'd want to audiate other works as well to really develop that inner ear. And it's something you just need to practice every day. If you practice it every day, you're going to get better. It's impossible not to. The problem is that people will practice 2-3 days in a row, then they'll take 2 or 3 days off. And then they'll come back, practice it again for a few days, and then maybe take a day off. So there's not consistency. As long as you're consistent, you can learn to develop your ear. You can learn to hear music. And that goes for the external, our more traditional type of ear training where we identify chords, intervals, things like that, chord progressions, and the less traditional, the more specific training for a composer, which is the ability to actually hear the music in your mind and then extract it from your mind. So those are really two different skills. They're two different skills, and they are important for all kinds of performers and composers. So make sure you know which type of ear training you're practicing, and make sure you spend time on the one that's going to benefit you the most. And you should probably do both, but if you're a composer, I would push more towards the side of audiation than interval training.